Can I analyze that in Excel? Probably not what you want to hear as a Power BI report developer, because that either means that your report is not showing the insights that the users need, or the users don't know how to use your report properly. Now, of course, both issues would need to address, but what you can also do is give that end user more control, more flexibility, like a pivot table does in Excel. So maybe we can bring that pivot table experience to Power BI. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's start by looking at the Excel experience that people are already familiar with that we want to bring over to Power BI. So over here, I have an empty pivot table that is connected to my published Power BI data model. Now, I want to analyze the revenues, so let's look for the revenue measure, which I have over here. I'm going to drag and drop that onto values. And then I want to have a breakdown by different location fields. So I go here to the location table, take that hierarchy and put it on rows. And you see we have a nice breakdown by country, and I can expand down to the state level, the next level in the hierarchy. Or I can also add something on columns. Let's say we want to have a breakdown as well by product category. I can just drag and drop that onto columns. Full flexibility, full control. Now, how can we achieve that in Power BI? Now, option number one is personalized visuals, which lets the end users personalize, so edit the visuals that you have added to a report page. So over here, I have one big matrix visual, and I can go over here to the header of that visual, and you see that button over there. That one lets you personalize the visuals, which opens that pane right next to the visualization. I can change the visualization type, but I want to keep it as a matrix. And then I can also choose what is on rows, columns, and values. Now over here, I already have the actual revenues, and now I want to choose how to break down that number. So I can go here to rows, and let's go for the same breakdown as before. So I go to dim location. Here we have the geo hierarchy, or we can also just choose the upper level in the hierarchy, which is country. Okay, and that creates a breakdown. And then I can go here to columns, and then dim product, and I want to have a breakdown by product category name. And just like this, we can continue. We can add also more fields. For example, here from the location table, we can also bring over the state. And you see, it doesn't expand down straight away. I would need to use the plus icons or the expand down buttons that you find also in the header. So you see, it requires a bit of knowledge from the end users of how to interact with a Power BI report. Somebody needs to know where to find that personalized visuals button, and also how to work with the drill up and drill down functionalities. Now, if you want to set up this personalized visuals feature, it's really easy to set up. Let's go to Power BI Desktop, and here you can go to Options and Settings, and then we need to go to Current File, Report Settings, and there we can enable personalized visuals. So that's one. And after that, you still have to go to the formatting options for the page. So select no visual, then go to formatting. And from here, we have to go to personalized visual and turn it on. Now, you can also see there's the option to use perspectives. Now, perspective is just a subset of your model if you don't want to overwhelm your users with seeing all of the tables and columns that you have in your model, or you want to restrict them to certain tables or certain columns. You can do that with a perspective. If you want to use those, just check out how to in this video over here. All right, so that was option number one. Let's now go to option number two, and that is to really replicate the fields panel that we have in Excel, where we have the filters, columns, rows, and values section. All right, now let's go back to our report. Now over here, we start off with a matrix visual, which is basically your pivot table in Power BI. It's actually called pivot table in the theme file. And then on the right-hand side, there we're going to create the rows, columns, values, and filter section. Now next, we need the ability for the users to switch between different breakdowns and value fields. Now that we can achieve with field parameters. So we can go here to modeling, and then new parameter, fields. Then let's change the parameter name to PRM rows. And here we can add the fields that we want the users to be able to break down by on rows. So for example, I can go here to channel, add channel name. And just like this, we continue with all of the other ones as well. So also here for location, I want to have the country, the state. And then when you have added all of the fields, you can click here on create. Now, when you do that, you get a nice slicer that you can already place here on the right-hand side. And now we just have to repeat that 2 more times for columns and values as well. So let me do that. And there you go. We have now 3 parameter tables, one for rows, one for columns, and one for values. And their corresponding slices I put here on the right-hand side. Now you see, I've also added a few extra fields. The next thing that I want to achieve is that I can choose the values that I want to show and the breakdown from the slices here on the right hand side. And for that, we need to go to the matrix visual, go to the builds panel, and here we can choose on rows the parameter rows, and then on column, we want to have the parameter columns. And then on values, there we want to have parameter values. Perfect. Now let's see if it works. I want to analyze the actual revenue and I want to have a vertical breakdown. So I go here to rows by country. So I select country and then I want to have a horizontal breakdown. So I go to the next slicer by, let's say, year. So we have now actual revenue broken down by country and year. And what if I also want to say breakdown by month? Well, then I can hold the control key, select month, and nothing happens. Well, it gets included. However, we need to make use of that expand down feature to then go to the month level, or you can also go up again and then right click on the matrix and then from here say expand down to the next level. All right, so not 100% the look and feel and experience that I want to have, but one step in the right direction. Let's first do a makeover for the slicers that we have on the right hand side. Now here, these are traditional slicers, and we can actually also go for button slicers. So let's do that first. I'm going to select that slicer at the top, and then I'm going to go over here and change the visual type to new slicer, this one here. And the first thing that I want to change is that we have all of these buttons in one column. So that you can change in the layout, where we can go for a grid that has only one column. And then here we can change the maximum number of rows that should show, and that already looks much better. Now the next thing that I would change is to give the text a little bit more space, which you can do by going back to formatting options for the slicer, with the buttons, and then here for the default state, change the padding. So this we can change to custom, and then we can go for 0 padding at the top and 0 padding at the bottom. And now you see the text nicely shows in the middle. Now, around the slicer, I actually do want to have a bit of padding, and I also want to change the colors a bit more. But let me make those changes quickly. And you see, with just a little bit of padding, rounded corners, and a different color for the selected button, it already looks much better. Now I want to bring over these formatting changes also to the other slicers. So let's do that. I'm going to go to the next one. Here I have to change that one as well to a new slicer first. And then I go back to the first slicer and then format painter and bring over the formatting to the next one. And then just once more. Now, as for the values, I have only 2 measures that I've added. I'm going to make this one a little bit less high. There you go. So next we need to redo the titles of the slicers, which we can also do over formatting. So let's go back to formatting, title, and here I just want to have rows. Now this is fine, but maybe you want to have a little icon right in front of it, just like we have in Excel. That icon over there. Now, how can we do that? Now, you could go for Unicode characters that you are allowed to have as text over here for the title. However, you probably don't find exactly that image for filters, rows, columns, and values. So therefore, I'm going to create a bit of space on the left-hand side and just place an image right in front of it. Now, I'm going to add a few spaces. And nothing happens, there's no extra space. So it ignores the spaces that we put here in front of it. So as a workaround, we need to look for an empty character, which you can find on emptycharacter.com. So I'm going to copy that over. So I'm going to copy it over back to Power BI and replace the spaces with that empty character. And either I paste it here a few times, or after that empty character, I have normal spaces. That also works. And now you can Google the icons that you want to have for rows, columns, and values, save them, and then insert them into your Power BI report using Insert Image. Alternatively, you can also make use of SVG code. So you can create measures that have the SVG code for the images. For example, here I have icon rows. Now, if you want to know everything about how to get started with SVG in Power BI, just check out this video over here. Now, you could just copy over this measure. Just make sure that that measure is also having the data category image URL. That's important. Now, over here you see I have also icons for filters, columns, and values. And then we can show it in our report using a visual that allows us to use an image measure like this. Now, one option is the table, or alternatively, you can also go for the new card visual. So let's select the new card visual. And here I'm going to take that icon rows, add it on data. And then I'm going to go here to formatting and then images. And then over here, we want to have the image on. And then here you can either go for image or image URL. And that's the one that you need. Then here you can click on FX and choose the icon rows measure. And that's it. Now we have that little table icon popping up there. But what about the other stuff? Well, that is just the callout value. So you can turn that one off. All right. And then you can also get rid of the background color. So turn that off as well. And then here for the card, there is also a background color that you can turn off. And now we have an image that we can put right in front of it. And of course, we need to make it a little bit smaller. There you go. Now let me do exactly the same for the other two slices as well. Now that starts to look good, but what about the filter? So far, I've been ignoring it because there are two options. We can either use that normal filters panel here on the right-hand side and make it a little bit more coherent with the rest of our theme, or we add some extra slices there at the top or to the side of it, depending on how many slices you would need. All right. Now, let me show you both alternatives. So you see, I've created here an extra filter section with two slices on top of it. If I would need more, then I would have to either create a whole new panel for it or make use of the normal filters pane here on the right-hand side and then make the look and feel coherent with the rest of the theme. Now this looks pretty good and feels very similar to what we have for the fields panel for pivot tables in Excel. However, what is not so good yet is the user experience when we have more than one breakdown on rows or columns. Let me show you. Now at the moment we have a vertical breakdown by product category. So product category selected on rows. And now I want to have product subcategory also selected. Now the only thing that changes is that we have these little plus icons right in front of it, which then indicates that we can open up the product category, expand down to the next level. Or we can now also go to the header of the matrix and use the expand down feature over there. Now, it's kind of easy to overlook. Now, what happens if we also add a breakdown on columns? I'm going to include the month as well, and nothing happens. I still see the breakdown by year. I don't have plus icons. The only place where I can see that we have another breakdown on columns is, well, here in the dropdown, I can switch to columns and then expand down to the next level. However, that requires quite a little bit of familiarity with Power BI and interacting with reports. Now, is there a better way in which we can make the user experience a little bit better? Well, let me give it a try. What we're going to do is make it very easy for the user to either expand all the way down or collapse all the levels, which we can do with bookmarks. So let me open the bookmark panel. And here we go and add two bookmarks. The first one I'm going to call expand all levels. And the second one we can call collapse all levels. And now the most important thing is that we have to set up the options correctly. So I'm going to go here to the first bookmark, click on more options. The only thing that we want to capture is basically that, well, that level at which we are. Now, this is captured not under display, what I thought first, but under data. So we only leave the check mark for data. The other ones we're going to toggle off. And then also very important is that we only want to do it for the selected visuals, not for all of the visuals, including the slices, because then the user experience would be worse, all right? So once this is done for both bookmarks, let me also do it for the other one. Then we can go back to the matrix, drill up all the way so that we are at the highest level, both in rows and columns. And then with the matrix selected, no other visuals, only the matrix, you go back to collapse all levels, click on the three dots and update that bookmark. Then the same thing you do for expand all levels, but then when, well, everything is selected, which you can do simply by clearing all of the selections here on rows or columns, or selecting all of the buttons, that would also work. And the same here. And then we have to go all the way down. So I'm going to click a few times on expand down. And you do that both on rows as well as on columns so that we're all the way down. And then when that button is grayed out for columns and rows, then we're going to update the expand all levels bookmark. So with only the matrix selected in this state, we're going to go to the three dots for expand all levels bookmark, double check the settings, all good, and then update that one as well. Okay, time to test it. Let me click on collapse all levels, boom, and then expand all levels, boom. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to make my selection. On rows, I want to have product category name, and on columns, I want to have the year, just like we had before. Then I only want to have the values for revenue actuals. And now, the moment of truth, I'm going to include month on columns. Nothing happens yet. However, when I now click here on the bookmark, expand all levels, then I go all the way down. The same for when I include now product subcategory name on rows. Click there on expand all levels down, it will go all the way down. If I click on collapse all levels, it goes all the way up, just like this. Okay, now of course not visible yet for the user, so therefore we have to have buttons that we can click on. So I'm going to go here to insert and then buttons, and these are navigator buttons. So bookmark navigator, and let's put them over here. We have created already a little bit of space right below our slicers. So now we can simply click here on collapse all levels, expand all levels. Of course, what would be again a step better is if we had a formatting option for the matrix visual where we can say automatically expand down when a new field is added. Now, at the moment, that is not there, but maybe in the future, who knows? All right, so now that we have these buttons there, let's also make them look a little bit better so that's coherent with the rest of the design. Okay, now that is already a little bit better. Now, the last thing that you need to do is to make sure that the bookmarks that you're using for the bookmark navigator are grouped. That's important when you have more bookmarks than just these two. So I'm gonna go back to the bookmarks pane and I'm gonna select both of them, then click on the three dots and group them together. And this one we can call expand/collapse. Now, if we then go back to the formatting options, for the bookmark navigator, then bookmarks, then here you can see, or should be able to see, the name of that group. Now, you see for me it didn't pop up, then let's just toggle back and forth between the new page and the previous page, and then go back to the formatting options for the bookmark navigator, and now it's there. Now, sometimes you see Power BI is still a little bit buggy. Okay, but it works. Now, the next thing that we can do to improve the user experience is to actually show what is selected on rows, columns, values. Now, how can we do that? Well, we can create a measure that captures the selection and then show the selection in the title of the visual and subtitle. On the title, I want to show selected value fields, and on the subtitle, I want to show the breakdowns that we have on rows and columns. Now, I already prepared two measures, so let me show you how they work. The title one is kind of a short one. So you see, I'm using the concatenate x function to iterate over the parameter table values, and then return over here the values. And then as a delimiter in between, we have and. Now, let me then also show the subtitle measure. And here the logic is exactly the same, just I have to do it for rows as well as columns. So you see, I'm also using that concatenate x function. However, as a delimiter, I have the pipeline symbol, and it is wrapped inside of an if function. I'm checking if something is selected for rows and if something is selected for columns. Now, only when something is selected, then I want to return the concatenation of the items. Otherwise, I want to show nothing. That's why I wrapped it inside of the if function. And then over here, we have the pretext, where I want to say by and then list the fields, where I'm also checking if anything is selected on rows or columns, if we have a breakdown in the first place. Otherwise, I don't want to just show by and then followed by nothing. Okay, now this I then combine and return as the subtitle. Now, let me try this out on our matrix visual. I select it, go over here to formatting, title I'm going to turn on, and then here we have the FX button where we can select our measure. All right, so we have the title, and then we have also the subtitle over here. So let me turn it on, click on the FX button again, and then search for subtitle. So here you see we have selected product category and product subcategory, year and month. Now, here we don't see the subcategory in the month in the visualization, but it lets us know that we can expand down to those levels, that we have them selected here on the right-hand side. So with that information, we can now click here on expand all levels so that we expand all the way down. I see this makes it just a little bit easier for the user to go between the levels in case they are not familiar with the arrow buttons that you find in the header of the visual. Okay, now I'm happy with how this works, but I'm not so happy with the look and feel of the pivot table itself. So let's do some formatting changes there as well. Now, very likely the formatting changes that we find here for the matrix visual are only going to get better over the next couple of months. But since the May 24 version, the options are even more coherent with what we have in Excel, because we have now here the layout and style preset. And there we have different layouts to choose from. We have compact, outline, tabular. So if we go for outline, let's see what changes. And now we have for the category and subcategory, the two breakdowns that we have in rows, not in one column, but in two columns. Now, this can help a little bit in making everything more readable. Also, when we put the totals now maybe at the bottom, so let's go over here to row subtotals, where we can say that the position should be at the bottom. Now you see that it's a little bit more readable. And also when we then go back, we see we have now blank rows, which we can toggle on, which creates, again, a bit more space. And if you need it, or if you want to, you can also repeat the row headers, just like this. So these options look familiar probably, because we also have them in Excel. Let me go back to that Excel file from before. Now here you see we have that pivot table, then design, and then here on the left-hand side, we find report layout, compact, outline, tabular, repeat all items, do not repeat all items, blank rows. So these options we now have also in Power BI. So it becomes easier to replicate this pivot table feeling in Power BI. So very good. Let me go back to Power BI. Of course, I would do some other changes here as well. For example, the style, I don't like, let's put it first to minimal. All right, and then we can go here to grid. Horizontal grid lines we can turn off. And when I go back to layout, well, one I didn't show you yet, and that is tabular. Maybe that works even better for our matrix here. You see, it saves a little bit of time because we do not go to the next row when we have the next breakdown. Okay, so I start to like how it looks like, but let me spend just a little bit more time to make it more coherent with what we have done there on the right-hand side with our slices. Now you see, I played around with the formatting options a bit, went for the tabular layout, added that blank row. We have here little border lines in between the different segments, and then I also highlighted the totals and the grand total with a different color. Okay, so that's in place. Now the last thing that I want to do is see what happens when we have more than one value field selected over here. Now, the default option is that now that second value field just pops up in a new column right next to the first one, which is okay. However, sometimes it's more readable if we would actually have it on rows. Let me show you the alternative as well. So if I go here to values and then options and then switch values to rows. So now you see we have the metric breakdown on rows, not on columns anymore. And what if you want to give the user the option to either break it down on columns or rows? Because they can just drag and drop in pivot table Excel. Now, how can we get it there? Well, to get that functionality, we have to make use of bookmarks again. It would be nice if we could just capture a formatting setting over here for the matrix, but that option is not there, hopefully in the future. But for now, what we can do is just overlap two matrix visuals that are showing the same thing. One has the values on rows, the other ones on columns, and then hide and show one versus the other. So I'm going to create a copy of this matrix visual, copy, paste. Now you see the two are overlapping. And for the second one, I'm going to put the value switch off. All right. And then we can go again to bookmarks and then add two bookmarks. The first one we can call rows and the second one columns. And then for these, we want to capture only the display state. So I'm going to toggle all the other ones off. Also here, important that we only do it for the selected visuals. And let's group them together, select both of them and put them in a group. And let's call this one toggle values rows columns. All right, so the bookmarks are almost set up. We just have to update them so that they capture the right state of the visuals. Now, it's always easiest if the selection pane is also open. So control click on the selection pane, open it up right next to it. And now I'm going to hide one of the matrix visuals. Let's select the one that's on top, hide it. And then I select the other one as well, which is over here. So now both of them are selected. One is visible, the other one is not. And then I'm going to click over here on the three dots for the rows bookmark, because here at the moment, the values are on rows. Let's update it. Perfect. Now we're going to do the same thing, but the other way around, right? So here we are going to show the other matrix visual, select both of the visualizations, then go to the columns bookmark and update it. Now always double check because it can go wrong very quickly. So if I click on rows, then I see the rows breakdown, columns, then I see the columns breakdown. Okay, perfect. Now, of course, also make sure that they exactly overlap. So with the position, you can go over here to formatting and then size and style. And then over here, you see after positioning, let's say that we put one here 40 from the left, 50 from the top. Then I go to the other one as well. Just make it visible for now. Go to formatting. And also there we want to have exactly the same position. 40, 50. All right, perfect. And then we can again put in a bookmark navigator. Now the quickest way to do it is just to duplicate the one that we already have and then put it where you want it to be. So for example, we can put it there in the header of values. Then we go to the formatting options of that bookmark navigator. And then here for bookmarks, there we can select the other group. All right, and that's it. And now we just make it a little bit smaller so that it nicely fits in there and play around with the formatting until you're happy. Now, of course, test it. And so here I want to put the values in rows, then click on columns. Perfect, seems to be working completely fine. And that's it. This is how I would bring the pivot table experience to Power BI. Of course, ideally, all of the other pages that have the core visuals, they should already be answering all of the questions that the users need to get answers to. However, sometimes it's not completely realistic, and sometimes people just want this extra level of control that a pivot table can give them. So consider it maybe for your next report. Now let me know your thoughts and questions, put them in the comment section below. If you want to build reports together with me from beginning to end, learn all of my tips and tricks, then check out my upcoming design transformation program over there. And if you just want to keep on watching Power BI stuff, then check out these videos over here. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.